is the Light of Truth radio broadcast with Michael Boldea.
All right, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us. This is the Light of Truth radio broadcast. I am, as always, your humble host, Michael Boldea, and it's good to be with you again. If you've noticed something changing, it's the fact that our previous recording site, Blog Talk Radio, is no longer available. They've decided to go the way of the dodo bird or the buggy whip, and so now we have transitioned over to StreamYards. Hopefully it's coming across 10 by 10. This is our first recording through StreamYards, so hopefully the audio is just as good. I am here, firmly ensconced in my favorite seat at the house. I've just brewed myself a hot cup of coffee, and I was just sitting here scratching my head wondering, what exactly are we going to talk about? There's so little going on in the world. I mean, almost nothing. You're sitting there scraping the bottom of the barrel, wondering, can there possibly be any news that we can discuss, because things are just peaceful and everything's happy and everybody's doing great? Yeah, exactly. So today is February the 6th, the year of our Lord 2025. If this keeps up for 4 years straight, I think we're just going to lose our minds. I think that the constant adrenaline rush and the constant fire hose of information is going to be such that 2-3 months down the road, we're all going to be in the fetal position, just waiting for one day where nothing's happening. Look, we said this last week, and I think it bears repeating. This administration has hit the ground running, and they've hit the ground running hard because they understand the dynamics of what's going on. They understand that at best they have 2 years, because no one can guarantee the congressional elections and the senatorial elections come 2026. So they're doing their darndest to stay awake 23 hours a day and just keep at it. Now, not everything I agree with. I think the whole idea of expansionism, is that the way it's called? It may be. I don't know. Yeah, it is. I'm no fan of the expansionism. The idea that we can take over Gaza and build Trump towers all over the place is just not viable. Look, even they said it'd be a 25-year project. Next presidential elections are in 4 years. And I think a lot of the people that have been very comfortable with the idea of sucking at the teat of government and not really producing anything or not really offering anything in exchange for all the benefits they've been getting as though there was no tomorrow, they're going to grow exceedingly bitter at the fact that one Elon Musk's is cutting the fat as if you were a butcher at a hog farm. Look, I know that people feel some kind of way about it, but the funny thing to me, at least, is that Elon Musk has managed to accomplish what no one in the history of America has managed to accomplish, which is actual bipartisanship in the Senate and the Congress. Who would have thunk it? Elon of the Musks has achieved bipartisanship. Everyone on both sides now hate him because, oh man, is he uncovering some unsavory things. Now, there's two things that I wanted to kind of focus on today. There's also a letter that I received from a brother John, who is currently residing in Virginia. And although I'm not going to read you the whole letter, because it is pretty self-aggrandizing of yours truly. He said a lot of nice things, and I do appreciate them. He did have a couple of questions that I think are worth getting into. And since Well, I do a lot of typing on any given day, writing books and the blog and the whatnot. So if I could speak my answers to him, all the better. He said he does listen to the program. And so hopefully towards the latter end of this broadcast, I'll answer a couple of his questions and we'll be done with that. But there's something that happened. And just so you understand the enormity of the grift, just so you understand the enormity of the dollar amount that the American people are getting robbed of, and just it's astounding. But last week, after this broadcast occurred, I think it was either Sunday or Monday, one Volodymyr Zelensky came out and said that of the $170 billion that was supposed to go to the Ukraine only got about 70 billion of it. I know you're thinking to yourself, it's like peanuts, isn't it? 170 billion bucks, 100 billion goes missing. It's just pencil it out. You just it's an accounting error. Well, the only problem is this, that Mr. Volodymyr Zelensky broke the cardinal rule. There is only one rule about money laundering, and that is that you don't talk about the money laundering. There was a movie that came out, I don't know, a few years back, and I heard this repeated often, especially by men who thought they can bare knuckle fight until they took a punch to the face. The first rule about Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. Well, the first rule, the only rule, the cardinal rule about money laundering is that you don't talk about money laundering. And Mr. Zelensky stuck his foot in his mouth. It was an unforced error. And now he's demanding nukes, because he knows it's the only way that he's going to get out of this unscathed. We need nukes now because you uncovered what we've all basically known. We've known that money laundering has been going on at a brisk pace within the federal government. But some of the things that have been uncovered and how wasteful these people who are supposed to be representatives of you and I, the U.S. taxpayer, because yes, I pay taxes. Last year, I paid nosebleed taxes because my wife is very good at what she does and she makes a decent income. And we got taxed for it, even with the two kitties. I was sitting there going, I don't like the taste of Pepto-Bismol, but you know what? Sometimes you just need a shot or five. So yes, I am a taxpayer. I file my taxes, I pay my taxes, and to realize the shamelessness with which the federal government has been spending U.S. taxpayer dollars is something that should cause every single one of us to bristle. Now, the funny thing is that pretty much the entire political class and all of what we would deem permanent Washington, how's the best way I can put this? They're currently soiling themselves at the thought of these deep dives into how government is spending your money going any further. I mean, the Elon of the Musks is now the boogeyman of every elected official in Washington. And this isn't just on the Democrat side. I promise you, the grift will be exposed on both sides. I think Mr. Gentleman Lindsey Graham is going to have a hard time explaining how so many millions of dollars ended up in organizations that he's part of. And that's just one. Look, they're just scraping the surface. They haven't even, not even 2%. And these people are losing their minds. They're having protests outside of the federal building. We need to stop this. But why? Why do we need to stop this? because it will expose you for what you are. You're not a servant of the people. You didn't get into politics to serve America. You got into it because somebody as mentally deficient as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now worth $30 million when she came into the U.S. Congress as a bartender. Let that sink in. Oh, by the way, the other thing that came out is that Chelsea Clinton, yes, the progeny of William Jefferson and Hillary Rodham, that Chelsea Clinton made about $80 million because, you know, she's so good at what she does, but nobody knows what she does. What exactly does she do? How exactly were they able to grift $80 million for that girl and her overbite? This and there's just layers and layers to this, because apparently the US government was funding news outlets to report the news in a certain way. Politico, I know we report the truth. Truth dies in darkness. All these people, all these sanctimonious people that keep telling you that you don't know the truth of it. Well, some $8 million went to Politico, and Politico was the first one that tried to put the kibosh on the Hunter Biden laptop. I know the incestuous relationship between the propaganda arm and the federal government is beyond belief. But hey, we need to get rid of the Elon of the Musks because he's exposing us. The people are cheering this. The average U.S. taxpayer that doesn't have some sort of grift, that doesn't have some sort of benefit, that just files their taxes every April and hopes that they can buy lunch for their kids after they make their federal tax payment, they're cheering this on. Because once it's exposed, once we know the full gravity of just how awful these people are, then we can begin to remedy the situation. They're not admitting to it yet. They're just trying to stop it because they know he's just scratched the surface. And it's astounding to me that all it took was like a handful of nerds with brain pans the size of Buick V8s and unlimited supplies of Red Bull to uncover what has been happening right under our noses for decades. I mean, if you read into what U.S. aid has been funding, because that was the big thing when they defunded U.S. aid, everyone was beside themselves. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of sending 15 million of taxpayer dollars to Afghanistan for condoms. I understand goats are not the cleanest animals, and their, ability for cleaning themselves is not there, but that's not my concern. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. We sent $2 million to Guatemala for transition surgeries because, hey, we need more people just butchering themselves. We need more people being suicidal and on suicide watch. There's just too few in the world. There's, enough in America, but we need to expand that. We need to let the world know that having, suicidal ideations from the fact that you allowed body parts to be cut off of yourself is now the norm. So to me, the biggest thing that's been going on this past week is the fact that, like an onion, every layer that's being peeled back, we're beginning to see just how gross and disgusting the abuse has been. And you have Mr. Schumer out there just screaming at the top of his lungs, nobody elected Elon Musk's. What? How can this happen? Well, yeah, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, Mr. Schumer, but nobody elected Il Dottore Fauci. And we suffered 2 years, 2 whole years, under the tyranny of El Dottore Fauci, where people were walking around with face diapers and getting fired after decades of working a job because they refused to take the jab and all these other things. I'm sorry, Il Dottore Fauci wasn't an elected official either, but that doesn't matter because Il Dottore Fauci wasn't trying to expose them. He wasn't trying to expose the corruption. He wasn't trying to expose the grift. I know all the media outlets that understand the sensitivity of the political power and speaking truth to power. They were making their money on their own. No, they weren't. Apparently, Politico was unable to pay their employees for the first time because guess what? They weren't getting federal money to spin the truth anymore. Oopsies. So it's all a mirage. It's all an illusion. Everything these people have been doing for decades on end has been to mold popular opinion and normalize things that the average citizen understands inherently that are abnormal. So, although, no, I don't agree with everything. I don't believe, just as Ukraine is not our war, Israel and the rest of the Middle East is not our war. The difference is that Israel is an ally. So, yes, should we support them? Most assuredly, they're an ally. But as far as taking over Gaza and rebuilding it for the next 30 years, not a fan. I'm sorry. There's enough problems to solve here within the borders of these United States before we can think about expansionism and doing things in other places. So I'm cheering on Mr. Elon of the Musks and what he's trying to do as far as just cutting fat. Stop spending. How do you think we got into $36 trillion of debt? They made what? They said it was like 200 in 2023 alone. I've been reading this. I've been keeping up because I need to understand the process. I need to know. And it's $240 billion of payouts by the federal government in 2023 were to people that shouldn't have been getting them. Dead people are getting money. Non-U.S. citizens are getting money. Everybody was getting money. And then we're sitting there going, 36 trillion in debt? How did we come about that? They spent, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, a few $1 million just on Oreos. How do you do that? They averaged out that a cup of coffee was costing over $1,200. How do you do that? And the question that is now rising into an actual chorus is, where did all that money go? Who profited? Because if you dig deeper, you begin to understand why so many people are vocal about certain causes. Let's call them causes. And we all remember the pastorette, the lady, bishop, whatever she was, that was browbeating the entire administration and talking about compassion. We have to have compassion. Well, that compassionate lady ran through about $52 million of government grants and other things. So it's not as though she didn't have a vested interest. It's not as though she didn't understand that, if this guy implements everything that he's planning on implementing, I'm not going to get my money no more. All of these people are diseased. They don't care. They just pretend to care. $50 million is what this woman ran through with resettlements and immigrant projects and all these other things. And now, oopsies, it's not that the biscuit wheels are falling off the gravy train, it is that the gravy train is being dismantled. It is utterly being dismantled. And these individuals that have been profiting off of your sweat and my sweat and the sweat of every honest individual that's got blisters on their hands and that works 2 jobs, and they're trying to carve out a few minutes to kiss their kids goodnight before they go on to their 3rd shift. All of these people were the ones that were being exploited. All of these people were the ones that were being stolen from. So no, I have no mercy for the permanent Washington class that's going to lose out on their millions. You know what? Good for you. Now you need to explain what happened to the money and perhaps claw some of it back. Look, most of the elected officials currently in government should be walking the walk of shame while being pelted with dirty diapers. These people are just absolute scoundrels. They have no empathy or sympathy because, man, if you're short a couple bucks on your tax payment, guess what? You're going to get a knock. You're going to get a letter. We've decided that we're going to take the money right out of your paycheck because you know what? Everybody has to pay their fair share. Fair share to whom? To Chelsea Clinton that made $80 million for no apparent reason other than the fact that her name is Clinton? Now, they're just, oh man, they're going after everything. They've gone through the line by line of the U.S. aid. And apparently U.S. aid is done for because the amount of abuse that has been taking place is just ridiculous. And the most recent news is that millions of dollars of U.S. aid was frozen and it was supposed to go to foreign media. And now everyone is outraged. And I've read the opinion, we're just creating more enemies. And I disagree with that premise because these people were never really our friends. They pretended to be our friends because they were profiting something off the illusion of friendship. It's like those people that hire prostitutes to be their girlfriends. And once they stop paying the prostitute, they're amazed that they no longer have a girlfriend. She was never your girlfriend to begin with. Stop. You were living under a delusion. So we're not making enemies. We're just exposing the true heart of those people that were pretending to be our friends because we were giving them money. So that idea is out the window. We have enough enemies. Now, perhaps the mask is going to slip and a lot of the people that we thought were our friends are going to reveal their true nature. And we're going to understand just how few friends we have, globally speaking. I know I use the word globe again. Mea culpa or mea culpa, as they would say in Italy. But the idea that by cutting off the endless funds of wasted taxpayer dollars, we're creating more enemies, that's just absurd. No, we're just exposing them for what they are. And so is there going to be pushback from every country that was getting millions of dollars for no apparent reason other than somebody was getting a kickback on it? Yes, there will be. Are these going to be some rough waters? Most assuredly. I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors by thinking that we can take over the Gaza Strip and make it into a mecca for tourists. But on the whole, what is happening, especially with what the Office of Government Efficiency has been doing, is something that the first time around, the big orange man promised he would do. And there were so many spokes in the wheels, and there was so much resistance to the idea of actually telling the American citizen what their money's being spent on, that he couldn't get any traction. There were just too many distractions. Now they understand that their time is limited and they have to do what they have to do in as little time as possible. Because now they went from U.S. aid and the Doge is chasing big money fraud with access to Medicare and Medicaid payments. And if you thought this U.S. aid thing was a can of worms, oh, just wait. Oh, just wait until they start doling out numbers as far as how much fraud there is in the Medicare and Medicaid system and the fraudulent payments and all these other things. You don't get into $36 trillion of debt by being frugal. You don't get into $36 trillion of debt by making sure that the money is spent wisely. And I am very curious. I'm almost exuberant at the thought of discovering where that missing $100 billion that was supposed to go to the Ukraine actually went. Everyone's getting kickbacks. And now they're realizing that two of the main sources from which they were able to live like royalty have just been cut off. One, all the laundering that was going on with Ukraine relief, done. Now U.S. aid, and by the way, U.S. aid has always been said to be, how do I put it gently, a dark fund for certain entities within the federal government. That's done, and they're just moving down the line. And you know what? I'm all for it. I'm sorry, but it'll give us a bad opinion of our elected officials. No, it'll give us a realistic opinion of our elected officials. It'll make us realize once and for all that people who get into politics, many of them don't get into politics for the betterment of mankind. They don't get into politics for the betterment of their average citizen or their constituency. They get into it because they understand that everywhere you look, there's somebody offering you money for a certain type of vote. And the various means by which these people were able to defraud the taxpayer, I keep going back to the taxpayer, is just astounding. So let's get into what is happening with U.S. aid, because care packages have been found with, guess what? Hezbollah weapons in Lebanon. Well, they were just doing good, man. I mean, I understand we don't like the whole 15 million for condoms in Afghanistan, but they were doing good. No, not so much. It was a slush fund. And it seemed as though it was a slush fund that had no bottom. We need more. What do we need it for? Right? We just need more. Shut up and give. And so guess what? Tick, tick, tick. Your taxes are going up every day. Your property taxes are going up every day. And you're sitting there going, my life is no better off for all the taxes I'm paying. Where's that money going? Now we're beginning to see where it's going. And it will be a sight to behold. They're doing everything they can, man, to get rid of Elon of the Musks, because they understand, just like the big orange man, he can't be bought. You can't go to the richest man in the world and say, hey, look, just leave that one aside. We'll cut you in. That's the thing that scares them. The thing that scares them most is that people who cannot be bought are looking into their shady dealings. People who cannot be bought are looking into what they did with the money that the U.S. taxpayers sent in good faith. And I'm sure that once they realize they can't buy it, the threats will start. I think they've already started. We're seeing members of Congress saying we need to take this to the streets. Who's we? Do you understand how brainwashed some people are that they're willing to side with the corrupt? Now, I get it. There have been people, and somebody has been forwarding me these YouTube clips of individuals who admitted openly that they've been on government assistance, on welfare, even though able-bodied, for 15 years. 15 years they've been collecting. And this lady was bragging about driving a 2025 Tahoe or some car that's worth like 80 grand. I deserve it. Why do you deserve it, madam? Because it's always been this way. And look, if somebody is incapable of working, if somebody is incapable of providing themselves or for themselves, I do believe that most Americans are empathetic enough to allow for certain societal safety nets. But there's a difference between a handout and a hand up. And if you've been on the dole for 15 years, although you are perfectly capable of getting a job, then I have no empathy or sympathy for you. And there's even people mocking those that go to work. They're standing there with cartfuls of lobster and steak, doing dances and going, you're an idiot. Why work a 9 to 5 when you can get this from the government? Well, the government is being funded by people who pay taxes, by people who wake up early in the morning, go to work, come back, take a shower, go to sleep just to repeat it tomorrow. And I think it's disgusting that certain individuals can game the system to such an extent and be so shameless in the idea that they are entitled to somebody else's hard-earned money that they brag about it on the interwebs. So, back to U.S. aid, because I think the whole propagandist media has just taken a hit. And it's one of those that can knock you out quite readily. American taxpayers are no longer subsidizing foreign media once funded by the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID. And by the way, just so you understand, every single project that USAID has been funding over the last handful of years had something to do with degeneracy. Either it was the Guatemalan transition surgery funding, or what was the other thing? Trans acceptance in Iran, or all these other, every single one. There's not one, not even a dollar that went to Christian persecution or protecting Christians from being slaughtered. None of that. You understand the purpose for it by seeing what they financed. President Donald Trump put a 90-day hold on all USAID's foreign aid this week, which subsequently cut $268 million from media outlets in more than 30 countries, according to the agency's 2025 foreign aid budget reported by Reporters Without Borders. USAID's 2023 fact sheet, taken offline due to the hold, boasted the agency supported 6,200 journalists and 707 news outlets, 279 media sector civil society organizations, the Columbia Journalism Review reported. We have articles scheduled until the end of January, but after that, if we haven't found solutions, we won't be able to publish anymore. Oh, the tears. You know what? If Politico goes bankrupt, all the better for it. You spent 4 years lying to the American people. You put the kibosh on the whole, well, this is Russian propaganda. It's Russian but it's him smoking crack with prostitutes. Nope, that's deep fake and Russian propaganda. Well, haha. See, this is why they were, how do I put this gently? The worst nightmare of the left is currently coming to pass. Their entire incestuous relationship with media outlets has been exposed, and you cannot undo this. Even if they manage to get rid of Elon of the Musks, even if he can't complete everything that he's planned on completing, the reality that you cannot unspill this milk, that you cannot undo what the American people have seen these people have been doing, is a net positive as far as I am concerned. The agency's work includes many radical left agenda items, such as $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities, $2.5 million for electric vehicles for Vietnam, $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala, and $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. It's not that the American citizen or that the American taxpayer is at the bottom of the list. They're not even on the list. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. All they care about is pushing their agenda. And right now, their agenda is being dismantled and they are terrified. Do you think Chuck Schumer and the rest are out there screaming like somebody set them on fire for no reason at all? They understand what is happening. So U.S. aid has been defunded, and now we're going to see how many media outlets stood on the power of their own ability to be funded independently, and how many have been taking, let's just say, payments from the federal government in order to massage the news and apply a certain narrative to it. Now, if you thought that Elon of the Musks and his team of kids on the spectrum who survive on Red Bull was done, their next, let's just say, target is the fraud going on in the medical system. More specifically, Medicare and Medicaid payments. And we're going to get into that because, look, if half the corruption was exposed and done away with, you're going to start seeing that ticker go from 36 to 35 to 34 and so on. Trillions of dollars are beyond our comprehension as individuals. But this is the kind of debt the nation's in. Elon Musk's new Department of Government Efficiency now has on-site access to payments and contracting information from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which oversees the healthcare coverage to more than 1/3 of Americans as it seeks to root out embedded deep state fraud and waste. CMS, a part of the Department of Health and Human Services with 6,710 employees of its own, disbursed $1.5 trillion in outlays in fiscal year 2024, about 22% of total federal spending. Musk is in no doubt about what now lies ahead for Doge as it hunts down those fleecing American taxpayers of their hard-earned dollars, taking to social media and declaring, yeah, this is where the big money fraud is happening. Oh boy, I know. We're going to see more protests, kids, and it's going to be a bipartisan effort. Because if you think that senators and congresspeople that have been there for decades aren't enriching themselves off of your hard-earned money, you're fooling yourself. Not all of them. There's a handful of them that are so vocal about their approval of what is going on that you know they've been untouched by the grift. They've been untouched by the corruption. Musk's team is yet to access the database that includes enrollees, personal data, and the Doge access is read-only. Because this was the big issue the last couple of days. Is it read only or can they make changes? No, it's read only. They're just going line by line and going, wow, we spent $6 million on sushi while 90% of the workforce was working from home. How does that happen? Because, by the way, that's a real thing. Besides the millions of dollars spent on K-Cup coffees and Oreo cookies, sushi apparently is a big thing. Millions of dollars spent on sushi while most federal employees were working from home. Explain that to me, por favor. Por favor, please explain that to me. You can't. Somebody made a bunch of money. And right now, you see thousands upon thousands of federal employees who are there only to serve the people taking buyouts of their employment because they understand the grift is gone and 150 grand doesn't get you far in DC. Now, 50 grand here, 100 grand here, $1 million here, it adds up when you're charging $6 million for sushi that nobody saw, nobody ate, nobody consumed, but federal government paid it out. CMS has two senior agency veterans, one focused on policy and one focused on operations, who are leading the collaboration with DOGE, including ensuring appropriate access to CMS systems and technology, CMS said in a statement Wednesday. We're taking thoughtful approach to see where there may be opportunities for more effective and efficient use of resources in line with meeting the goals of El Presidente Trump. Look, if you want to have a little levity in your life, if you want to smirk and smile just a little bit, look at the reactions of people like, I don't know, Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and just the unhinged rants these people are going on about. And apparently it's no longer the big orange man that is the bane of their existence. The bane of their existence currently is one Elon of the Musks. And this man, they're sleeping in a federal building to try to save money, even though the guy could afford to buy the Four Seasons on every continent. So I understand that some people are reticent about the things he said of federal spending going on the blockchain. That is an inevitability. I wrote something the other day, and it's on the blog. But there are certain things God said would happen, and they will happen. There are certain events that will take place in the world to facilitate this idea of a one world government, and they will happen. Now, am I a fan of government spending going on the blockchain? Actually, yes, because people will get to see, hey, waste. But they're not going to stop there. Is it this administration? Highly doubtful. But they can use the technology in order to basically decide that you're spending too much money on toilet tissue. And they'll know that it's on toilet tissue because if it's on the blockchain, it'll tell them everything they need. That's a different conversation for a different time. We're not there yet, but we're inching our way to it. It's inevitable. It's not as though we can stop the things that are coming. The only thing we can do is prepare our hearts and our minds, spiritually speaking, in order to meet these things. Now, UPI reports that more than 100 billion, with a B, in improper Medicare and Medicaid payments were made just in 2023. Let that sink in. UPI reports that more than 100 billion in improper Medicare and Medicaid payments were made in 2023, according to the U.S. Government Accountability Office. And as they would say in California, ¿Dónde está el dinero? Huh? Where did that money go? You have 100 billion that went missing between transfers to Ukraine. You have another 100 billion in improper Medicare and Medicaid payments just in 2023. We're up to 200 billion. The 51.5 billion with Medicare and 21 billion with Medicaid represent 43% of all improper payments in the government. The Wall Street Journal first reported Doge's work at the agency with access to payment and contracting systems, but it has not yet received access to databases containing identifiable health information about Medicare and Medicaid enrollees. Musk has vowed to cut between 1 trillion and 2 trillion from the federal budget. And every single elected official in Washington is yanking their head out in despair. Every American citizen, every taxpayer, every individual who understands that it's their money that's being wasted, kind of cheering this on. Much of the budget is for Social Security, Medicaid, military, and debt payments. Do you understand that they couldn't pass a legislation? I like the senator from Louisiana. I think the man is hilarious. And he's the one that put this forth, that we should stop paying dead people. There's like, I don't know, 200,000 individuals that supposedly are past the age of 112, still getting money from the U.S. government. And he just put forth a bill. Maybe we should stop paying dead people. Maybe we should figure out where that money is going. And it got shot down. Huh? I know. Oh, everything they do is bad. Perhaps not. Are there some things I disagree with? Like I said, most assuredly. Will there be more things I disagree with? Chances are, very likely, yes. But take each thing individually and understand that it's not all bad, it's not all good. And none of this, not one iota of it, would have been uncovered had Kamala Harris pulled this one out of the bag. So that's that. Now, to the letter I received, because I promised I'd discuss it, I got this from Brother John, David. Why was I thinking John? I like the name John. Brother David from Forest, Virginia. I'm not going to give your last name because, I don't want you to be harassed by people who think that I'm Ichabod for some reason or another. There are those. You know what? God bless you anyway. But Brother David from Virginia had a couple of questions, and I think they're apropos. So we're going to get into these for the little time that we have left. We started the program a few minutes later than we were supposed to because we're still trying to figure out StreamYards. Hopefully the audio was great. Hopefully this new platform is going to work for us. But I don't think we have any other choices. So, here we go. Recording is at 48 minutes and 26 seconds. It's even telling me how long I've been talking. So we got a few minutes to discuss this. We're going to discuss it. And hopefully we will have some answers. Now, here we go. If you don't mind, and again, this is page 4 of the letter. He started asking his questions on page 4. The other 3 pages were very kind and very generous. I'm not going to get into it because it would seem self-serving. They were very flattering words, and all I can say is we all have our duty to God. I do this because I know that God has called me to do it. I don't expect either thanks or praise, but, well, thank you for the kind words, Brother David. He also sent something for my kids, and that will be spent on steak. I am raising savages. They enjoy red meat like nobody's business, especially the older one. Oh boy, she's really gotten into the whole red meat game. So just as you know, Brother David, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, I'm sorry for you, but the money will be spent to acquire tasty, tasty red meat. Now, let's begin with this. We have a few minutes left. If you don't mind, I would like to ask a few questions, the last of which is lengthy because it applies to me personally. We'll get into that as well. The first two questions pertain to your ministry. First, I am curious as to why the initial prophecy about America, which your grandfather received, omits the international revolution started by the communists from the website. The website's been up for the last 20 years. I think it was just an oversight. I'll have someone look into it. But he's repeated it often enough verbally in his sermons. I think it's also in the book. I don't think it was omitted on purpose or for any nefarious reason. When the website went up, somebody else did it for us. I still don't know how to put together a website. I can barely post to the blog and on Facebook. I am not tech savvy. I'm so far from tech savvy that I look at the four kids that are uncovering all the waste and going, okay, you know what? Godspeed to you. I'm not on the spectrum like that. I don't have that type of brain ability to understand technology currently. But it wasn't it wasn't an omission that was intentional. So we'll have someone look into it. We may add it, but it has, look, I was his translator for 10 years. I started interpreting for my grandfather when I was 12 years old. And every time he spoke his testimony and I translated for him, that's how he would begin with the message for America. It will begin with an internal revolution started by the communists. It's not an easy stretch to see how fragile the entire construct of what we call civilization in America is. There's a potential for it any given day. I think if they continue to try to uncover all the things that previous administrations have done in order to keep the American people cold and ignorant and to decide what they should know, they're going to get more and more desperate. I think that the level of desperation we've seen thus far is nothing compared to what will be if they keep pressing on with this. And like I said, they hit the ground running. If you're a tax-paying citizen of these United States, then you should applaud the exposure of all the fraud. So I hope I've answered that question. It wasn't intentional. I think it was omitted just because whoever put up all the stuff on the website didn't know or didn't read through it. It is in the Through the Fire book. It's also in every sermon he spoke. So there's that. Second, he says, your grandfather was shown papers on which the names of those, hold on, let me get to the page 5. Saved were written with some space remaining to write the names of those yet to be saved. The January 1996 entry states that 2 men were walking out of a star, which Mr. Dudeman saw, and one of the men stated the following: I still have names to add to the number before all the things that I have shown you will happen. Then he opened a great book and said, do you remember how many pages were left to fill when I showed you last time? Now there is but 1 page left. Now, personally, having been there when he spoke it and I translated it and I wrote it out, I've always believed this was symbolic. It had more to do with the time that has been and the time that is left than actual names. Now, if you look at the spiritual condition of the church currently, and if you look at the spiritual condition and its degrading spirituality, I guess is the best way I can put it, over the course of the last 3 decades, you begin to understand that names are likely being added less frequently than they used to be. I know everyone was expecting a great end time revival to sweep the world, but what we're seeing currently is a falling away from truth, a falling away from godliness, a falling away from righteousness, a falling away from holiness and all the things the Bible says we must pursue in order to be reconciled to God. So even though there are more churches than ever before, bigger buildings, more beautiful buildings than ever before, I believe that Christianity and the faith have been hijacked by wolves in sheep's clothing whose only purpose is to keep people comfortable. And the best way to keep somebody comfortable is not to challenge them on sin, not to challenge them on holiness, not to challenge them on the things they know they're doing that hinders their relationship with God. Like I said, personally, I believe it was symbolic. I believe that there's very little time left. If you know that the atomic clock or whatever it is that keeps going towards midnight, that to me is a better representation than a literal 1 page left. So yes, I do believe we're close. How close? God only knows. And that's the beauty of walking with God. We don't serve God or walk with him like holding our breath underwater, hoping that it ends at any point, sooner rather than later. It's a joy to walk with God. It's a joy to know him. It's a joy to fellowship with him. So if we're given more time, then hallelujah. If he decides to come tomorrow, my bags are not packed, but I'm not planning on taking any bags anyway. Personally, I'm ready. I have no outfits that I'm planning on taking with me to the hereafter in order to dress nicely when sitting at the marriage supper of the Lamb. I think I will be provided a garment. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to pack bags. You just have to be ready. And as far as your last question, this is going to be a little more inside baseball because I'm not going to get into it. Yes, I've known people who were shown how much time they had left. I've also known people that were shown how much time they had left. And biblically speaking, God can change his mind and God can say, I will extend it. I will shorten it. It's up to God. The whole purpose of the exercise is for you to know that you're walking in the will of God. It's for you to know that every single day you stand before God and say, Lord, if there's anything in my life that needs correction, if there's anything in my life that needs pruning, your will be done. So I personally would not focus on that over knowing that you're walking with God. Because if September comes and goes and you're still here, then you praise God. If September comes and the Lord said, come home, then well done, good and faithful servant. So I hope I've answered your questions, Brother David. Thank you again for the kind words. Undeserved, I think, because I'm just a bondservant. So I do what God has called me to do. I do it faithfully. And if anyone gets fed by my words, if anyone receives understanding, then all glory to God. Now, I'm not using the camera because, my face is not camera worthy, but Gino is. And I see him nodding along, and I see that he's got perhaps a couple minutes to say what he needs to say. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for your prayers. Lord willing, we will see you again next week. If my face gets any more handsome, I may consider using video. And we can put up video next week, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I think that the older I get, the less handsome I become. Although my wife still believes that I may be handsome still. I wouldn't want to torture you with my face. God bless you guys. Gino, if you got anything on you, buddy.
Well, Mike, I'll tell you what, urge everyone to go to the handyhelp.com website and check out the dreams and visions. They're very concise in there. And also get in the Word of God because it talks clearly about America. Revelation 18, Jeremiah 51, 8 through 15. Study it out. Mike's right. Things could happen any day. We could have civil revolt on so many levels. Um, just protests that are starting. You've listening to the Light of Truth radio broadcast. We appreciate you being part of this broadcast. We appreciate you supporting Hand of Help. Check out the books, the resources, and the music if you can. There's a lot of wonderful things on the website, and especially check out the Message for America. And because these are all very pertinent in the times we're in. And again, as Mike said, the unrest could happen any day, but we live each day to the glory and honor of Jesus Christ. Win souls while you can. Share the good news while you can. Thank you for listening to the Light of Truth radio broadcast. Thank you for listening to today's broadcast, The Light of Truth.